At the Sports History Network, we're proud to introduce you to a new sponsor for our podcasts. It's Home Field Apparel, your premium collegiate apparel brand right out of Indianapolis. They've got incredibly comfortable t-shirts, plus they're officially licensed with vintage college designs. They have over 150 plus colleges available now and always adding more. Homefield digs through the archives and history of your school to find unique logos, mascots, and moments to make thoughtful designs for your school. When you shop today, new customers can get a 15% discount off their first purchase using the promo code SPORTSHISTORY at checkout. You can learn more at homefieldapparel.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude. And I want to welcome you back because this is the last part of a 3-part series crossover event between the Football History Dude podcast and Yesterday Sports. Mark and Dave are going to finish off their discussion about Super Bowl X. Then we get into some good conversations about the gap between generations. And of course, if you did not listen to part 1 and part 2, you probably should go do that first. But if you're all ready to go, let's get after it.
On with, so, and he talked about that, but he was tremendous. But that was his rookie year, that Super Bowl X. And that was Thomas Henderson's rookie.
Dirty dozen,
what, 12 rookies that year, Mark?
The dirty dozen. 12 rookies. Pat Donovan. I don't know. Out of those 12, I don't know how many. I don't think too many of them were starting in that first year because Landry didn't like to start rookies. But I think
there was a linebacker, Woolsey. He was a rookie,
I think he lasted too long. But they had Pat Donovan. I think was Herb Scott one of them. I can't remember if Herb Scott won. I think Herb Scott.
Herb Scott could have been. I can't
he
remember.
Might have been one of the rookies. They had a tremendous class of rookies there.
Yeah. They had a great team that year, and it was just they fell a little short. And then they played Pittsburgh again a few years later, and that was another great Super Bowl. But they needed a running back, and they addressed it. 2 years later, they picked up Tony Dorsett. But you could see it in Super Bowl X. Pittsburgh had a dynamic running back in Franco Harris. And, he didn't have a huge game, but he did. In Super Bowl 13, he hurt him a little. But, he had a great year, Franco Harris. That year was a tremendous year. I have to have a lot of respect
for a lot of people criticize him because he would run out of bounds. But that guy, I don't know. I think maybe Emmitt Smith broke his record. For years and years, he held the record for most yardage in the postseason. Franco Harris. He held that record for years. He always came up big in the playoffs, and the guy was tremendous. Every year he'd go over 1,000 yards. And he took a lot of criticism from some people because he would run out of bounds. Yeah.
They say he does a lot of charity work. And he always was giving back to the community, too. He seemed like a decent guy.
Definitely seemed. Yep.
But that was Super Bowl X. You know what else is funny? I made a note of this. I almost forgot. Somewhere in the fourth quarter, the Tom Brookshire he's going to go down to the dressing room. All of a sudden, the guy just leaves the booth, and in comes Hank Stram. They're just changing announcers, right? The game's 3/4 over with. And Hank Stram comes in, who I always liked, by the way. I loved Hank Stram doing games. And I never until I watched it again, I didn't remember that. I'm like, this is unbelievable. But then the best part of it all is he doesn't go down. Brookshire. The game got close. Right. He comes back into the booth, Brookshire. He didn't go down to the dressing room. So, but they had a reputation back then Summerall and Brookshire to being big party guys, big, heavy drinkers, both of them. So who knows what the hell was going on really behind the scenes? You don't really know. But, people think like the NFL, it's, this squared away deal and all this stuff. But there's so many stories I've heard over the years of stuff going on. And that could have just been one other thing, you know what I mean? But Hank Stram, all of a sudden, the guy just comes in out of nowhere and starts announcing. It was great.
Hank Stram
it really
was.
Was. No, just remember though, Mark. No penalties for Pittsburgh. That's all you got to know.
That's right.
Only time ever in Super Bowl history. The team went unpenalized in a game.
Yeah.
That's all you got to know.
It
was. I'll tell you what. It was fun rewatching it. Because you're watching and you was what was it 70? It was the January of 77. So I was a senior in high school. And I was
January of 76.
What was it?
The Bison.
I'm sorry, that's right. January of 76. So I was a junior in high school. And I was probably 16 years old. Do you have all the other patches, Mark, or no?
I have the one for 13,
Super Bowl
the one for 10, and the one for 13. You have to look on the. I got them on eBay. They weren't even that expensive.
I got the original patches when they first kind of came out. I got them at that show. I got all 5 of them, the ones the Super Bowls the Cowboys won, and I sewed them onto jackets. People are like, "Oh, you're getting crazy now. What are you doing that for?" I could care less. I'll be dead over here. People will be throwing stuff out like it makes any difference. Put them on the coat, wear it around. Who cares? I got, like a Letterman's jacket with the leather sleeves. And one of them came with a star. And then I said, I'm going to put some of these patches. So I put 3 on. I might even have the ones of the Super Bowls they lost, believe it or not. I have to go downstairs and look. But that was, they were expensive because I was getting the original. Oh, well, you'll know by the back because the glue is a certain guy's.
Yeah.
All this kind of crazy stuff. You know what I mean? Now, what difference does it make? You know what I mean? Like my buddy's into cards and he's got to make sure the corners are perfect and all this stuff. Put them in the thing. Don't make sure you don't touch the, But, it's just. That was a good game. It was a great game. It was fun to rewatch it again. It was fun to talk about it. Me and Mark, Arnie, during the week, we said, we're talking about, it's crazy. We're talking about these things and we're saying, it's old and it's this and that. And it really doesn't have any impact on our lives. Mark was saying kind of in the grand scheme of things. But it kind of does, though. I said to Mark, if you think about it, it does because we're still talking about it. When I would call the fan, people loved it. We would bring up old time stuff. People liked it. And so people liked listening to it. And when I had the ice cream shop and all that stuff was hanging up in there, to this day, people are still talking about it. It's only been closed 3 years. We closed in 2019. But there's people I know guys that I work with, young guys that I work with on the job, will come up to me and go, I went into that store when I was a little kid. And they're only in their mid to late 20s now. And they're like, I was going in there, I remember all this stuff and this and that. And, you don't think about it, but I guess a lot more people look at stuff or remember stuff than you think,
Right.
I guess that's my point.
Well, it was a good.
And, you're writing books, Mark, and you're having fun doing it. So it does have a bigger impact than you really think. You know what I mean? You're still doing it. It's you're that that much older, and you're still
you have
still
the
doing
people
stuff.
that criticize you and say, "Oh, you're living in the past." No, I'm not living in the past. I'm just reliving memories. I do what I have to do today. So how am I living in the past? I do what I have to do, but I have good memories of the past. So I try to block out the bad memories of the past and remember the good memories. And that's
You know what the scary, you want to hear something scary? Like a lot of these guys that come on the job, they're young guys, that get involved in police work. And they're talking about stuff. And like when I go, oh, my favorite modern Cowboy game is the 92 championship game against the 49ers. Hands down. Before they went to Super Bowl 27, that NFC championship game, the catch to Alvin Harper, that was my favorite. And in modern, the game is 20-something years old at this point. I'm referring to it as modern. And then these guys there's a couple Cowboy fans at the police department. They weren't even born when that game was being played. Not even born yet. And I'm referring to it as modern, a modern era. It's crazy. That's what's scary. That's very scary. I want to tell you
I thought it was your favorite game was the 91 divisional.
Oh, the Lions.
That's my only claim to fame as a Lions fan. The only one playoff win in 50-something years or whatever it is now.
Tell you, the Lions did a number on him that day.
This guy really did. He had that run.
Yeah.
Oh
well, yeah, but that
more than one run. And even when they played, I think in '94 they played Monday Night Football. I think the Lions beat them again. They had those crazy old uniforms on the Lions with the solid shirts and pin. They beat the Cowboys on a Monday night because I went down to the Fan that night to see Steve Summers and he had the game on, and we were watching it. And I said, boy, oh boy, is he going to give me the business if they don't pull this one out? And they didn't pull it out. And then Summers was always coming up with some kind of. He was a pretty witty guy. We talked about it years later on the air. I said, remember, Steve, we watched that Lions game. I said, the Lions beat the Cowboys on that Monday. He goes, yeah, that might have been the last game they won. He would say something crazy, Summers, but they played good that night, the Lions. They really did.
Eric Kipple, the quarterback?
I don't know.
In that playoff game?
Was that Kramer or Pete? Was Kramer there at that time?
I think it was Eric Kipple.
Maybe. Let me find out. 1991.
I know, he had a big game.
Roster.
He had a career game.
Yeah, he might have still been there. Rodney Pete, it says.
I told you.
But I don't know if he was on that.
No, he wasn't. He didn't play that game. I know that.
Would he get hurt or something?
It was either Kramer or Hippo.
Kramer was on the,
I know
on the
that.
team
I remember
that
that.
year, it says. I just thought maybe it was Kramer for some reason.
We started Steve Berline, who was playing pretty well. And Aikman was kind of mad about that. He said he was ready to play and he was very disappointed, but he hadn't played in weeks. And so I could see Jimmy Johnson just staying with the guy that's been winning. That's a kind of a normal way to look at it, I would think. You know what I mean? And he did not play well against the Lions, I can tell you that.
It says Kramer had 341 yards and 3 touchdowns that day.
Oh, cool.
He killed them.
I knew he had.
You're talking to somebody who I know you're talking about the.
He did, Mark. He killed
all the people that are not born when they had. I was only 6 years old when the Lions won that one. So I don't really remember them ever winning a playoff game.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. But we're getting to the point now, Mark, where we can't remember them winning any games.
You can't remember
either.
what you had
Cowboys
for dinner
are just really,
Dave, so that's not really a good.
But we can remember Super Bowl 10. We can remember Super Bowl 10.
Well, that
70s was a great era. I think the 70s and the 60s could have been the 2 best decades for football. Everybody's going to be saved with their own, but the game was still very, it hadn't been manipulated by all these crazy rules. And little by little in the 80s, they started to implement some of these rules. And it's just, I really think, maybe everybody's partial to the era that they grew up in, maybe. I thought the 60s and 70s were great, like unfiltered football kind of in a way. It was just, I don't know. It was just, the guys played on the teams for a long period of time. It was they trotted out the same team year in and year out. Do you know what I mean? Like there was very little changes.
It was about the game.
I think that kind of made it great.
About entertainment. It was all about the game. You didn't have 3-hour pregame shows. And, at halftime they bring out the marching band, and it was just like a high school game. They bring out the marching band, 10 minutes, and then the players were back on the field. All right, let's play. Now it's so much entertainment.
Let me ask both of you guys while I got you here. Do you think that some people go with the theory that you could win easier back then because you had consistency of keeping the team the same, and some people go with the theory, you could win quicker now, better because you could pick up a lot of these free agents. Which do you think?
To say.
You can argue either way, but I think creating a dynasty in this era would be more difficult and challenging than before the era of free agency.
And there's more players now. Back then, in the 60s, I think they had maybe a 35-man roster, right?
I'm not sure, but yeah, it was definitely not as large as it would be today.
And not nearly as many teams, of course. The AFL and the NFL were divided.
Yeah.
We had what?
Yeah, I think they had a 40-man roster.
But in the 60s, I think it was even less. I think it was 35. Like early 60s, I think a 35-man roster. And you had a lot less teams, of course.
And, the guys change. And only because I play fantasy football do I even pick up on it. But there's so much movement in the offseason, you can't even keep up with it. And now you start looking. Like I just went online this week to start looking at a couple of different things. And they're talking about, there's a couple guys in there, I don't even know who they're talking about, which was unheard of. There was never a time where I didn't know. They're talking about some guy that played for the Jaguars last year, drafted by the Jaguars, who got hurt, the running back. Etienne or something, or Etienne. I can't think of it. It begins with an E, his last name. Etienne. Right. And I was watching a guy on YouTube that I said, who the hell is this guy? And you forget about it. And you go, yeah, this guy, and then this guy went over. And for a second, I forgot even where Amari Cooper went. Oh, I forgot he went to the Browns. All this, I knew he wasn't on the Cowboys anymore. I'm not that brutal. But I didn't realize he was with the Browns. You forget where they go. And then you forget, Matt Ryan's with the Colts now. And the other guy's gone. The guy that played for North Dakota there. And all this stuff, these are quarterbacks you're talking about too. Like these aren't just some, run-of-the-mill players. Like it's the movement is unbelievable. But you're right. Arnie's right. Arnie's right, Mark. If you think about it, you had the same teams year in and year out. So you were using, you got a different player. Somebody retired. They got older. And you had another guy behind him who was also there for many years. Look at Larry Cole. He was there for years before he stepped into the fray. You know what I mean? When he stepped in for Lilly. So, but now everybody, it's just, and the guys you lose, it could be drastic. You lose 2 or 3 players. It can really alter your team today. But, the Patriots held it together for all those years. How do you think, they had a lot of years of winning season. They almost broke that Cowboy record of 20 straight years
short,
of winning season. They came very close to it.
They fell one.
Yep. I think it was one short, but they held it together all those years.
Did they?
We don't need to talk about that because the Lions are opposite.
Did they break the Steelers' record of 4 Super Bowls in 6 years? I don't remember how many the Patriots won because I wasn't following it as closely. Did they win 4 in 6 years, the Patriots?
I think. I can't remember.
What What was the question, Mark?
I can't remember.
I'm looking.
They
Steelers
might have
won 4 Super Bowls in a span of 6 years. I'm wondering if the Patriots were able to duplicate that.
I don't think so. I mean, in the 2000s, they had, I think it was the early 2000s, so they had the 2 in a row at one point. 3. There was a pretty span in there. I'm going to say probably not. That's a lot of Super Bowls in such a short period.
And this is what really irritated me is this Steeler fan I'm debating with. He's complaining about the score of the game. You won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, and you're complaining?
Mark's really mad at who is this guy, Mark? Who is he to you? Is he a co-worker?
One of those football groups where, people post silly things, and the guy said Jarrella missed 4 field goals. I said, you better rewatch the game because he missed 2 field goals. Then he's telling me the Steelers' defense went to sleep. Yeah, tell Staubach about how they went to sleep. 7
exactly.
sacks.
What did he have? 8 sacks, Mark? 7.
If that was one of those quarterbacks that was just in the pocket, they would have had 12. The only reason they didn't have more than 7 is because Staubach could get out of those. He was a scrambler. He got out of a lot of them. If you had,
there's a guy on YouTube. His handle is called the Logical Cowboy. I might have sent you a couple. He's very good. He's got an accent. Sounds like he's kind of like Jamaican, or he's pretty knowledgeable, and he puts his stuff on. And last night I saw one, and he said, was this the most best Cowboy team of all time? And he talks about the 93 team, the one that beat the 49ers handily in the playoffs. And then they were actually losing to Buffalo at halftime, 13-6 in the Super Bowl. And I said, look, if all things being considered, okay, if you look at each Cowboy team that won the Super Bowl, and even the one that lost in 78 was to Pittsburgh, that was a great team. I think the 71 team might have been better than the 93 team. I just look at the lineup, and people go, oh, well, they had Emmitt Smith. And, yeah, look, let me tell you something.
That's right.
Dwayne Thomas was that good for that year.
Absolutely.
Dwayne Thomas was phenomenal. Okay, Bob Lilly said he thought that Dwayne Thomas could have been the next Jim Brown, and he played against Jim Brown, okay? The Cowboys had two tremendous all-pros on the offensive line and a Hall of Famer in Rayfield Wright. John Nyland was all-pro, and so was Ralph Neely. Okay, they had Staubach, and they had 2. I know Lance Allworth was older, but they had Bob Hayes and Lance Allworth at wide receiver. They're both in the Hall of Fame, and Mike Ditka at tight end. Also, I know he was older, also in the Hall of Fame. Okay. And their defenses couldn't compare. The 71 Cowboys defense was way better than the 93 Cowboy defense any day of the week. Okay? They had tremendous they had a tremendous defensive line. And they had a tremendous linebacker. Chuck Howley should be in the Hall of Fame. We already talked about it. And 3 out of their 4 secondary guys are in the Hall of Fame. Mel Renfro, Herb Adderley, and Cliff Harris. 3 out of 4 in the secondary. The Cowboys' 71 defense was better than 93.
Whenever someone asks me who is the best Cowboys team ever, I always pick 71. 71. They started off very slow that season. They were 4-3. And then they reeled off 10 wins in a row. 10 wins in a row. And they look who they beat in the playoffs. The Vikings. Vikings probably had the best defense in the league that year. Then they had to play the 49ers, who may have had the best passing game in all of football. And then they played the Dolphins, who the following year went undefeated. They were not playing soft teams.
That's right.
They won 10 games in a row after starting off.
And not only did they not only did they play the Dolphins, they held them to 3 points, which was a record until somebody just tied it a couple of years ago. That grotesque Super Bowl, the Rams against the Patriots, was disgusting. Anyway, the Cowboys held Miami to 3 points. You know, if Larry Zonka didn't fumble in the opening drive, that could have been kind of a different game, you know. It was the only time he fumbled in 200
I don't think he had a fumble the whole season.
12 carries or something?
And he fumbled. That's right.
Nope. He crossed midfield, and then on the next play, he fumbled. But that was it. Arnie, how do you like? I looked at some of the guys on the Lions. I had Swift last year on my fantasy team, and he got hurt on Thanksgiving, and that killed me when he got hurt on Thanksgiving, because you're just coming into the stretch run for fantasy, and like he was really getting me a lot of. See, we get 2 points per reception in our league, and he was getting a lot of catches out of the backfield. And he was having a good year for me, I tell you. And that hurt. But I see that he's going in, like, there's some guys taking him in the first round this year, even in fantasy.
Yeah, if he stays healthy, he's going to be phenomenal. I mean, that's what sucks about it, though, is because you can't get him at a value anymore.
No, I agree with you. But how about the other guy that runs there? There's another guy that gets a fair amount of carries.
Oh, Jameson Williams. Jamal Williams.
Yes.
He came from Green Bay. Yeah, I mean, he's going to still get the rock, but they have that Craig Reynolds had a pretty good year last year when he was the only guy in town, but they just signed Justin Jackson too. So I take any one of them at the later draft, the rounds, but just basically it's DeAndre Swift, and that's about it as far as main fantasy value, unless he gets hurt.
How about the tight end? He's not bad.
Yeah, Hawkinson's good, but they actually want to use him more as an inline blocker. If anything, DJ Chark might actually be a guy that comes out like as a steal in the late round drafts, because everybody's going after Amon St. Brown, which he's phenomenal too as like a slot guy. But I could see that DJ Chark, they could hook up for a few deep bombs because he's Pro Bowl type talent. I mean, he's done it before. So I don't know. I'm really excited just because they got that. It's just if they stay healthy, and they're going to be in a lot of shootouts because that defense they're not ready yet. They're just real young, and they're starting to put talent up there with Aiden Hutchinson. So we shall see. But Dave,
right?
So if you're into fantasy football, we're going to put together one for the Sports History Network. If you want to join, if you're looking for something fun to do, we can invite you to, and you as well, Mark.
I don't even know any of the players, but.
Well, then I for sure need to invite you to the league because you're fresh fish or whatever they call it, and all the guys that Dave puts away, the fish in the cell.
No, listen, I'm going to tell you, I'll either do swaps on Sundays at work, or I'll save some of my vacation time to take Sundays off. I got guys coming over here. One of the guys has been coming over here 27 years. We did a fantasy league out of, I told you, I think it was started in the USA Today newspaper. And Brett Favre had just gotten drafted by the Falcons, so I'm not sure what year that was. It might have been 92 or 91. And that was the year we started. And then by the third year, whoever was supposed to be answering the phones wasn't answering the phones anymore. It's like the middle of the season, and we're calling each other up, and you're going, are you guys putting your lineup in? Nobody's answering the phone. Well, they folded up, packed up their tents, they went home. So then we just kept the same scoring. They had a real good scoring system that we actually kept for our league. So we've been doing it a long time, and guys have a fun time doing it, and I have fun doing it, but we save players for 2 or 3 years, then we throw them back in. So this is our throwback year where we start from scratch again. But we have limited waivers. We only get X amount of waivers a year. There's none of this crazy stuff where there's unlimited amount and people are making waivers every week. We limit it to 6. And if you have a guy that goes out injured, you don't have to use it against your 6. You could pick up another guy without using a waiver pick, but it makes it very competitive. You just can't start or picking up guys to block somebody else from getting the guy. That stuff doesn't kind of go on in our league, but it's it's pretty good. It's fun still. I still have fun doing it. But I've been watching a lot of. I've been trying to catch up now, and I noticed that there's all these. It's just so many on the. It's unbelievable the amount of the guys that have these things on YouTube. It's staggering the amounts of them. Some of them are very good, and some of them are terrible, actually. But some of them are very informative. You know what I mean? And you're like, boy, this guy, he really does his homework. Or there's some really interesting guys out there that have some interesting stuff. I gotta be honest. Like some of the guys show cowboy stuff. I don't even waste my time watching it. Besides you, Mark, there's a guy here, Jeff, in town in Waterbury. He's like one of the biggest cowboy guys. He's like I said, the first time we ever spoke on this thing, there's guys that know, and then there's guys that really know. You know what I mean? And there's not too many guys that really know. Mark being one of them, and this other guy, Jeff, I know he's got, a really good memory and stuff, but, you don't get that a lot of times. But it's fun to talk about it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like you said, Mark, what else are you going to be doing?
You can't just work all the time. You have to have some enjoyment. And thank God we have one.
No, you got to do stuff. And, and I noticed too with all these young guys that I do work with, a lot of them aren't even into sports anymore. I noticed that.
Right.
Like a lot of them don't even follow. They don't play. They don't, they don't care about even watching football or anything. So if I could work a Friday for their Sunday, they love to do it. I'll work your Friday. You work my Sunday because they want to get Friday and Saturday off, these young guys. You know what I mean? So it works out good for me. And I don't mind doing it, So we'll see what happens. But the Cowboys already down a receiver. This guy, James Washington, that they picked up from Pittsburgh. He's a receiver, helped take up the void that he broke his foot or did something sprained his foot. So he's going to be out like 6 or 7 weeks. So they already got their hands full at the receiver position of, they got Noah Brown, who's average at best. They got a couple of young guys. I guess they're supposed to be pretty good, but I don't know. We shall see.
Dave, I was watching that Cowboys and Eagles game you sent me, 1981. I still haven't finished it, but one thing I noticed in that game, well, I've noticed it in other games too. I don't think I ever saw a quarterback take more blindside shots than Jaworski did. He never seemed to have seemed to have a sense that somebody was behind them. They say after 2-3 seconds, quarterback should know that somebody. He never seemed to like he just ignored, like he just was so tunnel vision. He would never realize that someone.
As the Italians would say, my father used to say, the Italians would say he was getting scalded. Yeah. Oh. And I mean, he was really taking a pounding.
Yeah.
I noticed that, Mark. Yeah. And Randy White was getting to him a lot.
He would take those blindside shots. He was a decent quarterback, but he was.
As you get older, you start to look at things. You watch these older games and you look at stuff, and there's all this stuff today. And, you get more limited. I think we talked about this, Mark, like what you want to buy or what you want to collect. And about right during COVID, I think it was 2020, I took a trip down to the Amish. I like to go every year, kind of, because there's just a lot of nice stuff you can get down there. Everything they make is really good. And there was a guy with a sports store down there. And he had a picture of Ed Jones sacking Bradshaw, and he didn't sack him. Bradshaw got the ball away. Yes. I take it back. And it was in this game we just watched, Super Bowl 10. It was in the first quarter. And I mean, Ed Jones came off the end, and 6'9". He really lambasted him. And I said to myself, that's the picture. So the guy blew the picture up, And he put it into a really nice frame. And because I do a lot of photography, I kind of know what frames are worth. It was a double matted frame. It was a really nice frame with blue and silver, you know. And I didn't, for some reason, I don't know why. I was going to go back, but I didn't pull the trigger. And it was like one of the things, it was like one of those things that you look at and it takes you right back to your early days of watching football. The second you see, I said, that's Super Bowl 10 because they had the patch. They had the patch on the thing. And I said, there's the play right there. It was in the first quarter when I was watching the game. I said, that's it. That's the play where Ed Jones came up over the top and just landed. He just put all his weight on him, and you could see it. And and I said, I never went back and got that, you know, and I don't, you know, you don't really care as you get older.
Yeah.
I think I told you, Mark. Did I tell you I bought a
me.
Super Bowl ring years ago or no? After I bought that ring, that was the end of it for me, kind of. It was, you know, the guy that had it, he dealt in rings. They called him the ring man, Irv Lerner. He was out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's completely out of it now. He doesn't do it at all. I don't know if somebody took over his collection, but he had all kinds of rings. He had salesman samples. He had rings that, like, whoever was making the ring that year, they would make up, well, they would call them salesman samples, and they would make up rings. And so the team would look at certain rings, like make me 4 or 5 rings, and they would pick, oh, we're going to go with this one. So there were these salesman samples left over, but the ring that I ended up getting was one that was supposed to go to somebody that was working within the organization. And so it's the players' rings and the diamonds on each corner, there was 2. And on this ring, there was only 1. And that was the difference between the 2 rings, between the people that were. And the ring in the middle was round. The diamond in the middle was round in the middle of the star. And the players' rings, the actual diamond was cut in the shape of a star. So if that was the 2 difference between the regular, the 53 rings that got handed out to the players in 92, and there was another 27 rings, I think. There was a total of 80 rings. And I had just gotten, you know, I'd gotten in good with the guy. I'd seen him for years and years at the national show. And I said, this is what I'm looking for. This is kind of what I want if you can get it. He had a 95 ring when they beat the Steelers in 95. Yeah. He did have one of one, but by that time, the rings were getting bigger. And they were kind of actually gaudy looking. And I didn't even like the look of it. And I have big hands. Yeah. My rings, I had to take a size 16.5 ring. And even that, I said, you know something, this ring it's not even, the ring that I have was really pretty. Like you could wear it into a place, you could wear it to a restaurant. And it's not this overpowering, crazy, ugly thing that looks like you're walking around with like an animal on your hand. It's carrying around like a little chipmunk or something. Yeah. These rings have gotten crazy. They're out of control. They're not even really nice looking. I'll be honest with you. They're kind of stupid looking, if you ask me. You know, I remember the first one I ever saw up close was after a Monday night football game, and I saw Hank Stram. He was leaving the stadium, and we walked right up to him, and we were talking to him, and he had his ring on. And I said, Hank, Mr. Stram, do you mind if I take a look? And he put it out, and it was really, really nice. It had that red in it, and it was in the shape of a football, I think, the inner part. It was similar to the Jets ring the year before. The Jets have that green. If you look at I saw Joe Namath on him at the Hall of Fame. His was nice too. But the Hank Stram ring was really nice. And the Raiders had a couple of really nice rings. Al Davis had some really, really nice taste when it came to making their Super Bowl rings. But ever since that Cowboy 95 ring, that took off and they started to get crazy. Some of these, look at some of the Patriots Super Bowl rings. They're absolutely ridiculous. They're insane. You know what I mean? But, you know, now you see stuff. But that picture of Ed Jones, I should have pulled the trigger on it. It wasn't even that expensive. It was nicely framed. Yeah, I would have found some place for my house. I have no room here, Mark. You know that. I mean, but you take something else down and you put that up. You change it out. But, you know, as you get older, you just don't seem to care as much, I think.
It gets to be too much work.
You know?
I have this.
Do I have Mel Farr? I think I have Mel Farr or I have Lem Barney. One of those two, Arnie, in one of those 3-foot Sports Illustrated posters from the 70s. I had him laminated. And I think he's calling for a fair catch. I got to go look at the number. I can't remember which guy it was, but I have that upstairs with a bunch of other real old ones. I put them in a closet. Like I said, people will be throwing it all away. what are you going to do with this stuff? I mean, you know what I mean? Start hanging and, you know, I guess you could donate it to somebody or somebody that's got, that likes old time football stuff. I'll give it all away. I mean, I got a lot of stuff, but it is what it is. But putting it on YouTube, Arnie, that was a good idea. Mark was telling me about that. That's where you could show a lot of your, stuff that, people could appreciate.
There you go. An extensive conversation between Mark and Dave covering Super Bowl X, and then you even got more than you bargained for. And how about that little teaser there at the end where Dave mentioned how he's going to put some videos up on YouTube? Well, at the time of getting this all edited up, Mark hammered out at least 20 short videos showing some of his cool memorabilia and giving a mini history lesson of each one. We'll start posting them over on YouTube channel for the Sports History Network, including many more from other shows on our network. So, head over there. Make sure you do that little thing where you click that little bell, notification bell, so you can get notified as soon as a new video releases. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through. This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
It was just another ordinary day in the offices of the Pittsburgh Guardian newspaper circa 1924. But for Marla Delft, assistant editor, everything was about to change. For she was about to discover the awesome attractiveness of Row 1 brand retro sports paraphernalia items thanks to Orville Mulligan, sports writer.
And there it is.
Wow, Orville, that's really the bee's knees.
Isn't it just? A poster-sized replica of the actual 1909 World Series program cover.
I can see that. But where did you get it? And where'd you get it framed?
I ordered it from the Row 1 website, where over 6,000 items of sports memorabilia from the 1880s to the 1990s are available for reproduction, in multiple sizes and in several different materials, with over a dozen styles of frame to choose from for prints like this.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Delft would love to put up more of these in the office. But I'm equally as sure they're beyond this newspaper's budget.
Not at all, my dear Marla. See for yourself. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com/row1.
sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. Oh my, these are good prices. Oh, and look at this stuff. Oklahoma-Nebraska football, college basketball art, Michael Jordan items.
And so
retro
it was that
sports
Marla Delft
advertisement
discovered the
placards.
splendiferous magic of Row 1 sports memorabilia, arts, and prints. You can too by visiting sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. That's ROW1 today for access to the full Row 1 catalog of gallery prints and gifts like t-shirts, long-sleeve shirts, telephone cases, coffee mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Act today for 15% discount off all prints with coupon code SHN15 and 20% off all other items with coupon code SHN20 at checkout. And keep your dial locked to the Sports History Network for the exciting chronicles of the 1920 sports world in Orville Mulligan, sports writer. Coming soon.